Hello, and welcome to another episode of How I Discovered My Gift with yours truly, David D. Simons. I am so delighted and excited to have today's guest on. So I'm going to read his bio, and then I'm going to give you my personal relationship take on this amazing brother that you're going to hear from today. So Fox Wade. Fox was born and raised on the north side of Flint, Michigan. After being abused and neglected by his mother and stepfather, Fox decided to join the United States Army to escape from being homeless at the age of 18. Upon entering the military, the September 11th attacks on Washington, D.C. and New York City sent Fox to Afghanistan and Iraq in support operations enduring and Iraqi freedom. So during his deployments on both combat zones, Fox realized all the equipment, resources, and service support functions that were being provided by private corporations via government contracts. This created his curiosity on how private corporations grew their businesses through contracting with government agencies. Fox then learned the most important significant federal and defense agencies can be broken down into two categories: civil and defense. After being wounded in western Iraq during combat operations and receiving a Purple Heart Medal, Fox medically retired from the United States Army to begin his military post career working with the Federal Emergency Management Agency as a grants program manager. During his tenure at FEMA, Fox managed over $175 million worth of government contracts and grants. After learning the government contracting game and leaving the from the inside, he then said it was time for him to start his own and started to promote his business, Black Fox LLC. So after 4 years of launching Black Fox, Fox has been awarded over $25 million worth of contracts on all levels of government as a prime and subcontractor, delivering an array of products and services across several agencies. Thank you so much and welcome to the show, my brother. I also just want to share with everyone listening how I got to connect with this awesome brother here. I was on a trip I was actually in Tanzania, East Africa. I saw his course while I was on Instagram, during the holidays. I said, man, this looks great. I immediately bought it, and I saw one of the opportunities to get mentored by Fox, and I didn't know, but I actually called, and he picked up the phone, and I was like, man, I'm so sorry. It was like, I want to say it was like 3 a.m. in the morning where he was. He picked up the phone while I'm in Africa. I wasn't doing my math correctly on the time zones. And he said, I'm glad to be your mentor, and I'm glad to pour into you. And since that day, he's been that. And so I just want to say that just speaks to the character and the testament of who he is as a person. So for those who are going to see him, you've seen some of his content or seen things around. That brother is a genuine brother. So I just want people to know that. Sometimes you see people online and you don't know what the character is like, but he's a solid brother. Online, offline, in front of the scene, behind the scenes. So thank you for coming on the show, brother.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. I 100% feel truly honored to be a part of your process and how you've grown from the first time we met. Once again, my name is Fox Wade. Everyone, nothing special about the first name or the last name, just Fox Wade. That's all it is. I've been in government contracting for the past almost 5 years now, maybe going on 6. But I've been in this space providing professional services to local, state, federal, nonprofits, non-governmental organizations that's funded by the government. I've been doing some pretty cool stuff, helping them support their goals, their mission, and their objectives to provide resources and support to the American people. My main company, which is Black Fox, is based out of Baltimore, Maryland. We only focus on a few core different areas, which is program management, healthcare, staff and support, healthcare information technology, cybersecurity, and also operational resilience. I'm not a techie person at all, but that is, the type of services that we do offer to our government customers. We also provide services to private corporations as well. I don't like to say that I'm a government contractor. I'm just a business owner, businessman that happens to be able to do business with the government.
Wow, man. I love it. I love it. So I love the dynamic of, just from where you were to where you are today. I mean, like you really give someone no excuse, right? Like, can you take us through the journey, man? Like, I didn't even know that about you till I looked through the bio and studied the bio. That you grew up in a pretty tough upbringing and in a city where that's faced a lot of turmoil over the years, and even more recently with the water crisis and all those things. So, can you talk to us about the upbringing? Like, did you envision that the person you are today, you would be who you were when you were a young child? Like, take us through your childhood a little bit.
I don't think we ever do. I'm the product of teenage parents. My mother was 17. My dad was 17. I didn't know my dad growing up. I didn't meet my dad until I was 40. Like, I'm 40 now, but I'm sorry. I was 39.9 or 39.11 months in. But, I didn't know my father. My mother was 17. I don't think she knew what she was doing either when it came to kids. And, when you're coming from a very oppressed background, after I did a little bit of history about my family and the dynamics, it's like a cycle of abuse. I found out that my mother was abused. Her mother was abused. So it's like sometimes people just don't know how to get out of that cycle. And so, being a product of a 17-year-old mom, going from house to house and, her having, marrying someone who was a prominent drug dealer, him being very abusive. I don't like to call him my stepdad, but, in this context, I will. It was quite normal because when you're born into a rough environment, you think that that's how life's supposed to be. You think that's normalcy. I remember, just trying to play basketball on the street and gunshots going off and you got police chasing people through the neighborhood. I mean, it was really rough, but honestly, I thought that was normal. I truly thought that was normal until I started playing AAU basketball. I'm sorry. Let me go back. There was an incident that happened to where, I was molested by a 16-year-old girl or whatever, and I ended up going to go stay with my grandparents. And then once I lived with my grandparents, the household was more balanced and more stable. And I was like, you're out of your normalcy when you're used to hearing sirens every night. You're used to hearing people fighting. I was 7 years old. We had our house raided one time. And I remember I'm sleeping in my bed and, these people just come to the house and they throw me out the bed. They tear up my room. They tore up the house, but come to find out our house was being raided because, there was drugs in the house or whatever. And I'm telling you, I thought that stuff was normal all the way up until I joined the military at 17 and a half-ish, 18 years old. And I remember going to the military and it was different for me because I was so used to so much chaos, so much drama that I finally had a moment of peace, even though I was in basic training. But I'm like, listen, guys, this ain't bad. I'm getting food. I got hot water. It's actually quiet at night going to bed. So, coming from that different dynamic, I can honestly say that I won't say that it molded me into the person I am today. It just gave me more reinforcement to be able to handle certain situations, as I became older.
Wow, man. Wow. What a journey. So, I mean, you go from this pretty much extreme environment, right? But like you said, it was normal. And then you shift into the military is very orderly structure, all of these things, and you kind of appreciated it. When you're going through this process, did you begin to start to see who you were, like your talents, your abilities? Did you find out some of the learnings about yourself? And if so, what did you find about yourself? Maybe some of your strengths, some of your gifts, some of your talents.
To be honest with you, I didn't really discover who I was until about the age of 32. Being in the military, Only thing that I ever wanted to do was to just be the best that I could be. See, a lot of people got to understand is when you come from abusive parents, you know, when my little brother was born, which I don't have no relationship with any of them at all, but when my little brother was born, we're about 7 years apart. That's when I kind of knew that I was in an abusive spot, because when he was born, he was treated like the very total opposite than how they were treating me. I remember I used to walk to school as a kid. I used to walk to elementary school as a kid, and it would be freezing outside. It would be wet. It would be cold. And they will pass by me in the car taking my little brother to school, but I had to walk. Like, that's the type of like mental torture that I was faced with. So when I came into the military, because I was away and I was in a new environment, my only goal, honestly, was to just be the best that I could be. Like, it didn't matter, because when you coming up from a household to where nobody really wants you, and then they verbally tell you that they don't want you, they physically tell you that they want you, it's like you come out to the world, you just want to just be wanted. So my goal was to just be the best, like no matter what it was, I just wanted to just be the best, right?
Yeah.
And so when you come into the military and you are the best, you start getting this thing called recognition. So imagine that you come out through life and you've never been really recognized, but now you're like, oh, you did this, we recognize you. It becomes addictive and a drug. So all I wanted to do in the military was just be the best. So it didn't matter what the challenge was. I just wanted to do it and be the best at it.
Wow, man. That's powerful. So you said at 32, what kicked in at 32? What did you start to see? What was that?
So sometimes you just have you got to look at your patterns, right? And I started looking at my patterns, like I would get married. Like I was married and end up getting divorced and having kids. And, you start looking at your life, because I think I was transitioning out of the military, because I was done with the military. Once I got injured, and then I tried to like literally stay in the military, but I was end up faced with so many different obstacles in the military, once you're trying to, climb that ladder. And one day I was just like, you know what, you're killing yourself. And it's like they keep moving the goalposts, right? You trying to be the best you can, they moving the goalposts. So I end up medically retiring out the military. And then I was like, I started watching like Les Brown, listening to Will Smith motivational. And I was like, if they can do these phenomenal things, why can't I do it? And I think that's when I was 32 years old. And that's when I truly discovered, like, you know what? You are more phenomenal, more powerful than what you imagine. You had a great life in the military. Why don't you take it to another notch into this thing called a civilian world and entrepreneurship? And that's when I really started changing the course of how I saw the world. One of my favorite quotes is, change the way you look at things and the things you look at will change. And once that clicked in, everything else is just, what the sum of that change is what I have today.
Wow, man. Wow. Okay. So take us now. You've left the military, and you go into, you go straight into FEMA, or did you go? What was the path? Talk to us about the career path.
So I worked at a warehouse for 2 weeks. And so when you transition out the military, right, you're so used to having structure. You're so used to having, like, people got their little separate goals and objectives and missions, part of that corporation. So I worked at this warehouse right outside of Atlanta, northwest side of Atlanta. And I'm there, and the person who was there as a supervisor was not a leader, right? Let's just be real. Everybody put into the leadership positions are not a leader. So here I come fresh out. I'm more structured. And so I was there, and I'll say I was there for a month. So when I got there, I had already, had some certain certifications. My education level was intact. I had my MBA by the time I got to the military. So I'm there and I'm looking at processes like, how can we make this better? How can we streamline it? And I started implementing. Now, I wasn't a supervisor, but I was the echelon lower. So I'm making all these changes, and now productivity is starting to increase. Right now, the regional managers are coming in to be like, "Who is this guy coming in that's rearranging and change? Is making productivity better over a 2 week span." So now my supervisor is not feeling safe in her position, and then because of she behaved in an unprofessional manner, but but when you bring in somebody like me that has a different dynamic, everybody starts doing what? Shifting away from attention on her to me, and now they're coming to me for certain things. Wow. And then we just end up just bumping heads. And I was like, you know what? I can probably take what I have, because that was my first time having a civilian job. Mm-hmm. I can take what I just did in a month time span, and I can do it somewhere else. So I started looking at opportunities with the federal government versus, working in private industry.
Whoa. And so where did you go? Where was this organization? Was that
the FEMA?
Yeah. Was that FEMA where you went to next?
So I actually started, I came out and I was like, you know what, let me just do some stuff. So I actually got my real estate license. So I got my real estate license. I did a full year of helping people because I'm, very good network, very, close with a lot of people. And I was selling 1 or 2 homes a month. So wow. I knew I had like somewhat of a sales skill that I can, not convince, but, be able to help people solve their problems. And so while I was doing that, I ended up attending a training called the EBV, entrepreneurship, entrepreneurship. I forgot. It's like a program for veterans with disabilities, whatever. So I'm going to this program called the EVV, and it was based out of Hartford, Connecticut. We went to University of UConn in School of Business. Yeah. And I ended up meeting somebody that introduced me to government contracting. I didn't know it was such an industry. And so from there, they introduced it to me. And then once I'm obsessed with something, I go all full-fledged. Mm-hmm. So while I was selling homes and, take care of my family, I ended up starting a company, somewhat starting a company into the government contracting space. And then next thing you know, I'm like, you know what? In order for me to really understand this, I may have to move to the Washington, D.C. area, because that's the core of where all the federal government agencies are at. So wow. End up relocating to Maryland and starting, working at FEMA for a year, understanding how they did business, acquisitions, processes, grants, etc. And then once I felt like I had the information I needed, I went on and launched the company Black Fox.
Wow. That's so, I think you just dropped so many gems right there. Like that. I just want to unpack for the listeners listening. So you knew what you wanted. First of all, like you knew, hey, I see an opportunity to get into this government contracting thing. You got obsessed with it. You learned and you mastered all the things. And sometimes people don't want to go into deep dive. They just want surface knowledge. You went deep and you said, no, what? To get a better chance to win, I need to be in the environment. Packed up your stuff. I know you're saying it, quickly, but that wasn't an easy thing to just pack up and move and just go to another area, probably not familiar with the area, and just try to adapt. Can you talk about that transition in itself? Like that must not have been, I'm assuming wasn't that easy just to make that move. You got a family, you got things you got to do, but you had a goal.
Yep. Hey, sold the house, moved the family up there. My wife at the time, she had all her family, so I had to kind of convince her to do it. But yeah, it was tough because, kids were so used to being in the school districts and stuff like that. It was tough, but sometimes what you have today is not what God intended for you to have. So you got to make certain sacrifices to get to where you want to get to. I'm back in Atlanta right now, even though I still stay between both Atlanta and the DC area. But sometimes we just gotta, we gotta we gotta make those hard choices in order to get to our vision. One of my favorite books I like to read is The Alchemist, right? If y'all ever heard The Alchemist, it talks about, a young boy to where he was somewhere in southern Spain, and every night he would have these visions and these dreams to go see the pyramids, and there was some treasure waiting for him at these pyramids. He had never been to Africa, never crossed over the Strait of Gibraltar to get over to Egypt, but he saw it in his head. And that's what I seen in my head was, I'm going to start this journey, of a company called Black Fox that's going to be doing millions and millions of dollars doing government and private corporations. And sometimes you just got to just make that hard decision.
Wow. Respect, man. Respect. So I want to put a pin in that. We're going to come back to that. But at this time, like from my understanding, there's a clear, I think I know what it is, but I want to hear it from you. What is your gift? What is your dominant? I mean, you obviously have multiple things, but what's your most dominant gift, and how do you use that regularly?
I've always said that my gift is that I have an engineering brain, right? I can look at things and tear it apart in my head, right? And see what are the interconnected pieces in order to get to a end result. That's always been my gift, to be able to see the future, to be able to have that vision, to be a visionary. And on the flip side of that, I've always been stubborn enough to be able to go after my dreams. Like nobody can stop me. And sometimes you get in relationships, and in those relationships, people can try to put a pin in what you trying to go after. And I just became to the point where I said, nobody is going to stop me from accomplishing what I envisioned. Because once God implants something into your head, that means that God is taking a moment to create something and implant it in your head, to manifest it and make it into something from intangible to tangible. You definitely got to act upon it. And you can't allow people to get in your way. So that's my gift, is seeing it, believing it, and achieving it.
Wow, that's what's up, man. I was gonna say systems, which is engineering, right? It's like understanding how systems work and how to put those pieces together. So great. So now you're in the DC area. You're learning the game of FEMA. What are you extracting through your engineering mind? What are you pulling and extracting from their systems and processes, and then how do you now take that and go into Black Fox? And tell us about that first contract, that first win.
So I always looked at it because a lot of times we want to start a company or a business and we just want to sell what we sell, right? That's not how it works. I always took a step back and I looked at it and said, what are their problems, right? What are, when I'll be in meetings, I'm listening to going, what are the so they need this. And I would take notes and write it down. And then you got to understand that how the world works. In order to solve a problem, you need to pay for a solution, right? So now I had to sit back and understand, what is the budget? What is their annual budget? How is that annual budget broken down? Because you can present a solution all day long, but if your customer don't have the money to buy it, then it's just going to sit there, waiting in a queue somewhere until they're ready to pull. And then relationships, networking, right? Like just listening and not being the one that's always running your mouth, but, taking those two things on your head and just listening to people and really being a genuine person and being good. Now, that doesn't mean that if people are being non invitable, if you want to call it in that sense, then yeah, you don't need to mess with them, but you need to build relationships, because people do business with people that they trust or they think they can trust.
Right. That's good. So you're learning, you're studying all these problems, you're seeing all these things, and what you were there for a certain amount of time, and you managed over $170 million contract. So Are you analyzing all the private entities? Are you analyzing all the people winning? Or what are you studying and what are you gleaning?
Most definitely. So, the funding that I was in charge of was our program was 175 million. And what it stemmed around is that we would provide grant opportunities, contracting opportunities to private sector corporations to do research and development, to do certain things in the community, from an economic standpoint, job standpoint. So I'm looking at, I'm going, wait a minute, y'all are paying me X amount of dollars per year, but I just signed off on a $2.9 million grant that's allowing for a company to go install smoke detectors and carbon monoxide detectors in low income housing. Like, wait a minute, what am I doing wrong? So I started looking at that different perspective and concept as well. So it's kind of like one of those things to where if you take a step back and look at and follow the money trail, right now you can figure out how you can jump on that trail.
That's
So
cool.
my first contract actually came from a relationship. So end up calling somebody that I never had met. I was connected with them through someone else, and they were the ones who invited me to a meeting. And I went to that meeting. Was very genuine, and the other guy at the meeting was like, "Hey, well, I got this new contract that I just won at the end of the year. I need help on it. Do you want to do it?" It was only $30,000 contract, but I was like, "Yeah, definitely." I worked the contract myself, and then as I was working halfway through that one, because I was doing such a great job, and anybody who's tuning in and watching this, you got to understand if you win a contract, you definitely want to do your best on it. So halfway through that contract, another contract opened up, and that contract was $60,000. So within a 65 to 70 day, process of me launching my company to going to a meeting, I went from $30,000 contract to $90,000 total within that time span. And then 6 months later, I had developed another relationship, and somebody vouched for me. Ended up winning a $1.3 million contract to do some services, and I was able to bring on actual people to perform on that contract. So I literally went from being an independent contractor to an official business owner within a 6 month time span.
That's amazing, amazing. So you're sharing a key nugget because a lot of people, including myself, have struggled with the transition for people that are in business and trying to get into the government contracting world. We think, oh, it's just like I gotta have the most amazing work, which you should have amazing work, and I'm just gonna plug away and put all these applications in and just plug away. And we kind of try to work it like a lead generation system, CRM, which you can, but like you're saying, I think you're hitting on a key nugget is the relationship piece. And I think a lot of people miss that, including myself, until I had a great conversation with you. It really helped me to understand that, hey, it doesn't matter if it's a government, they're still people. You have to build relationships. So if you could speak on that misnomer that most people missed, like myself, about how important that relationship piece is.
Relationships are so important because, from an emotional intelligence standpoint, right? Whether you work at McDonald's, you work for a government agency, don't matter what you do, you're still a person. And a person has this thing called emotions. How can you ethically, from a really good high character standpoint, don't play with people's emotions, but understand their emotions, right? So a lot of people, and I get it, you start a business and you're trying to keep your business alive and make money. But why don't you look at it from a different lens and say, let me just go to lunch or do something with them, and I learn more about them, right? Just from you looking at my background, right? What is one emotional play that you can use that can spark a conversation with me, right? You probably could be like, oh, he was in the military. Let me talk about the military. So those type of things that you can not play on, but utilize in order to open up a little bit more doors. When I talk to people and let's say they like horses, right? You can go to people's social media and figure out what they're into. They like cars, right? Your player is like, oh, I see you got this type of car. I have that, goal to have that type of car too. So it's all about, having the emotional intelligence to really just have a conversation with people, have it genuine. The one thing that people don't like is if I just met you and you're already talking about you got a contract? Got something for me? Got some work for me? Like, slow down, get to know somebody first, because it's an intimate relationship. And I'm not saying intimate as in like, girlfriend, boyfriend or husband, wife, but it is an intimate relationship to be like, hey, this is me, this is who I am. Because if they're going to entrust you with a task, right? They're trusting you that you're going to deliver on the things that you say that you can deliver on.
Mm. Wow. And if in the realm of things, how does that weigh? Like, let's say a person has they have more technical ability, right? Let's say somebody is super the company has all the tactics, all the tools, all the stuff, but they ignored the relationship part, and the other person has maybe a mediocre level of the talent or the skills or the stuff, and they have prioritized the relationship part. Who's winning?
Oh, definitely the person with the relationship. See, there's two type of mental states, right? You're either an introvert or an extrovert, right? I'm an introvert. I'm a born introvert, but I knew getting into the space of being a business owner that I got to become a hybrid. I like my time alone. I like things like that, but at the same time, I got to be a hybrid, right? I got to understand how introverts work. I got to get out there. I got to be able to have my moments to have conversations and talk with people. So you get that all the time. Super techie people are what? They're introverted. They know the work. They don't. I don't want to talk to you. So right. You got to figure out. I'm not saying you got to have balance in this world at it, but you just got to figure out. Okay, if I give this person 30 minutes of my time as an introvert, I can learn more about them. That's all I'm gonna give them, and then I can go back to my normalcy. So for me, yeah, I've always been able to understand, because when you're in the military, the number one thing you have to do is adapt to your environment, right? The environment doesn't adapt to you. You got to adapt to your environment. So if you've got a goal that you're trying to achieve, then you're going to have to put some adaptation into your processes.
I love that. I love that. So Fox, if you could speak to like just your personal journey and as far as development goes, right? You kind of talked about it a little bit earlier, right? And I don't think people really understand the level of work it takes behind the scenes to build an organization to the level that you've built it, and to develop your person into the type of person that could attract all these things and do all these things. So, what's the kind of discipline? What's the kind of work ethic you've had to have, whether studying, whether learning about certifications? You're also part of the 8A program. There's a lot of paperwork. Like, could you talk about the development side that most people don't see that is important?
So when you are a business owner, right? When people talk about I work 40 hours a week for a job and I'm trying to get out of the 40. Listen, when you become a business owner, you work 80 hours a week. This is how it is, especially when you're getting started, right? Because your business foundation, that business development phase, you have to do certain things to stay competitive. And we understood that being in this market, which is so kind of difficult to be able to navigate, that we needed ammo, some different things to be able to, compete against the big boys. So that's when, I started researching what small business programs are out there that can assist us into winning new contracts, going through those processes. I think what it is, honestly, I can tell people my process on business development, but it comes down to two words: discipline and pleasure, right? They're both things that you must have in your life, right? You must have discipline and you have to, have some pleasure in order to, live. But which one is more important? If you can literally hone in on discipline, then your pleasure would be so much more, right? It's like people who are overweight, and you start looking at them like, okay, you're not overweight because the world wanted you to be overweight. You're overweight because you don't have no discipline. So how can you have more discipline to be able to focus on what you want to do? So that's why when it comes to the company Black Fox and the other different companies that we have, my discipline is so obsessed and focused on getting that from here to here that there's nothing that can take me off that path. So when you look at all the certifications, all we have, it just comes from discipline, come from being innovative, come from just being curious about certain things. And then, you can actually build something. I get it. Like, it's not for everybody, but those who willing to, put in that work, it's going to give you the results. That's why you see people who are extremely fit. That's why you see people who are wealthy, is because that discipline factor outweighs that pleasure.
That's gold. Discipline outweighs the pleasure. That's good, man. That should be on a t-shirt, man. That's gold. So when you think about like that first year, right? That first year in business after you had the 30, the 60, and then the $1.3 million deal, like what did you have to do to prepare for that? Like that's a big quantum leap, right? So obviously you were honing in on yourself, because a lot of people want to get make $1 million plus in their business, but they don't understand what actually goes behind the scenes and what it takes to manage something of that responsibility and that capacity. So if you could speak to that.
So there's a phrase, a quote from Les Brown, and it goes like this: "It's better to be prepared for an opportunity and not have one than have an opportunity and not be prepared." So what I always did is that I always look at what are the companies doing that's been doing this for years, right? Like, what do they have that I don't have? Oh, they got an HR system. They have this, they have that. Now in my brain, it's not about how I can do it. I got to figure out, who do I need to talk to? So I would reach out to, and I become close friends to a lot of people in the industry that are my mentors nowadays. And I'm like, knock on the door, and I'm like, hey, I know you don't know me, I don't know you, but I know you've been around in business. You look just like me. Can I just take 15 minutes of your time? I'll even buy you lunch, but this 15 minutes of your time is to navigate this process. So I will go to my mentors and say, hey, I got this company. My goal is to be here. Can you give me some insight on what I need? So they will break it down and say, yep, I did this. You need that. You need this. So before I got that contract, I had already had things in place because I was willing to be humble. I was willing to listen, and I was willing to implement what they said, right? Because if they've already went down that path and they struggled at it, and they can give me the blueprint to get around the obstacles and the struggles, why not implement and take their advice, or take their advice and implement their strategies?
That's gold. That's gold. So now take us into we believe there's three phases, right? The discovering your gift. You obviously have that engineering mind, and you have that just persistent, I'm never going to give up attitude, right? And then we went to the development phase and just talking about the discipline over pleasure. But now we talk about the distribution part, because here's what I believe that you do well without even seeing what you do to the government side, just seeing some of the things, the conversations we've had, that I think you do really well is the marketing, right? So the distribution. And it's not enough to be to have a certification. It's not enough to have credentials. There's many people that might have some of the credentials you have. They were veterans. They're in certain programs, but they haven't achieved a certain level of success as you. And you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it's also because of how intentional you are in your marketing, in your relationships, and all those things. So if you could speak about the distribution, the importance of marketing yourself, marketing your business, both personally and on the professional side.
So what I've learned is that the world is a massive ocean. And when you're just getting started, you're like this little itty bitty pebble, right? So if I take a little itty bitty pebble and I threw it into the Gulf of Mexico, who's going to see it? Nobody. So how can you make yourself into a massive boulder without bringing negative attention to yourself, but bringing positive attention to you and some of your endeavors? So a lot of times when I'm strategizing, I'm like, I like going to the grocery store and nobody really knows who I am. But as you get bigger, things start changing, right? But how do you want to be known, right? When your legacy is over. And I thought about it and I said, I don't want people to look at me like an attractive man. I want them to look at me as somebody who brought information and value to the world. So that's why when you go to my social media platforms, I'm providing educational value that people can implement in today's business in order for them to be successful. So that's my goal, is to provide information like, listen, if we can do it, you can do it, right? That's one factor. If you can do it, we can do it. And also, here's some steps and strategies that you can take for free. Also, I always call it free game, right? Here's some free game for free that you can actually use. And it's not, like, I'm not getting paid for it. It's just me trying to give back, to the world of that positive energy.
I love that, man. So let's talk about that actually. So, the money for you is made in the government sector, closing deals and doing these things. Like you said, you don't have to do the mentoring that you do. You don't have to have, GovCon and do the things that you do. Could you speak about more about what you're doing and how somebody might be listening and says, Fox, I would love to do a government contract. I would love to gain. How can they, what's the process? What can they learn, and where can they go to get some resources from you?
So before I dive into that, so I want to let people know that it is a struggle, right? It's a struggle because, yes, I literally could just focus on my family and my companies and make money and travel the world and give back to the community and nobody would ever know, right? The reason why I started the mentorship program is because it's not a lot of us that's in this field. It's not. And so one night I had to come up to the realization that you're going to have to be the one that, because I've already done this with my family. I've already broken generational curses. I've already reversed engineer all that stuff. So I've already sacrificed to be that pinnacle point in our family history, to be the first millionaire, to be the first successful person, to be the first person to have their kids have six-figure net worth, right? It's hard. Breaking generational curses is hard. So now how can I help other people break generational curses? So I actually went through like a pilot program to where I was going to teach this game to people for free, but we all know free means abusive, right?
Yes.
People are abusing it. So I said, you know what? How can I attract people who are very serious about moving forward and growing in this space? And that's when I said, no, it's not free anymore, but there is an investment behind it, because we understand when people put an investment behind something money wise, they'll take it very serious. And plus I want to attract people who are very, very serious. So that's where the program came into place, GovCon Blueprint, because I want people, because you're right, I don't need the money, and I struggle with that all the time. And I'm like, well, if people can invest in this program, number one, I know they're going to be serious, but number two, how can I raise additional money in order to do some cool stuff in some of these adverse communities, right? So if there's a place in Gary, Indiana that's always packed and kids are playing basketball, but the floors are all jacked up and that's their only escape from their environment, and we're not getting money from the state or whatever, why can't I, have people invest into this program? And now I can take $30,000 to replace a gym floor. I can take $200,000 to renovate a community. It's like all these different things I can do with that additional funding in our community. So that was the cause behind it. And now I'm trying to work out how to funnel it through a nonprofit to be able to have it as a tax write-off.
I love it. It's brilliant. It's brilliant, brother. So they can go to govconblueprint.com or win.govconblueprint.com to get access to this free ebook that they have. Tell us about the ebook and
they can get. A new site is going to come up for the ebook. It's going to be win.govconblueprint.com. ebook, but there will be a call to action button on the website that's actually being developed between the next 48 hours. Because you can go to win.govconblueprint.com and get the ebook right now. It's the first portion of the website, but everything is going to get a little bit shifted over so that way people can, have access to it a little bit faster. But yeah, that's the free ebook. The courses are on win.govconblueprint.com. I'm developing another course as well that's going to focus on grant funding, and another course that's going to be on demand. The courses that you see today are live cohorts. So I'm actually instructing weekly trainings, right? Every week, every Wednesday evening, we go through some pretty cool stuff. We're in cohort 2 right now, to where today's the final day of cohort 2. And everybody in the cohort will be submitting a bid today. They will be submitting a live bid, whether they're ready or not. Hey, you better be ready. But the cool part about it is that you will have your proposal template completed and done, so that way you can submit on it.
So Fox, can you speak to the business owner that's listening to this right now? I already have the private side. I don't want to deal with the paperwork. Is it even worth it, me going into this government thing? I've heard it's a bit of a process. The government's already tough to deal with, period. Why should I go into government contracting? What would you say to them?
I was the same way for a long time. But here's the thing about the government. The government has these things called contracts, right? And a contract is an agreement. But these contracts can last for 1 year, right, which is a base year for most of them, up to 5 to 10 years. As we drift towards this recession, which, we're already in it already, but as the water starts to rise above our necks, the government is the only recession-proof entity on the planet that already has its budget and funding already forecasted out over the next 5 years. So government contracts are still going to be issued out on a daily basis as is, and that's on local, state, and federal, and non-governmental organizations, and quasi-government as well. So if you do not want to get into government contracting, just understand that when you're doing business with other businesses and they start losing their revenue, then they're going to start losing their interest in you doing business with you as well. But the government doesn't, because the government has the overall mission to support the American people. So that money is already in the system already. The other thing about government contracting is that major corporations have been doing this for centuries. So we think about Verizon, we think about AT&T, Facebook, Amazon, Microsoft. The list goes on and on and on. Walmart, they all have sustainable government contracts. And when you look at their business revenue portfolios, 60% of their revenue comes from government contracts, because we all know that this is the long-term wealth gain, is to have these substantial amount of contracts. The less people that are in it, the more people going to win, but the more people are in it, the more that probably that government budget is going to increase, because that's the name of the game, is to promote small disadvantaged businesses to win more contracts. So that's my take on it all. That's why we have 70% of our business portfolio is government contracting, because I know if I lose that 30%, the company is still going to survive no matter what, because we still have sustainable revenue that's coming in from these government contracts.
Wow, what wisdom! I don't think anybody has an argument against that. That's good. That's good stuff right there. So, Fox, I always ask this question to all our guests. And you weren't prepped on this. You didn't know this question. The question is, what's the difference between one's gift and one's purpose? One's gift and one's purpose.
A gift is what you are given, right? It is given to you, and a gift could be, an athletic gift. It can be what we call it. You can be brilliant at something, like, that's a gift. A purpose is when God has literally opened up a path for you in order for you to accomplish something, whether that as an individual or as a leader of a group. That's my take on purpose. And that's why, I know within me, my purpose is to provide this educational information to my people in order to get them to the other side, right? It's just like Moses when he was given, right? He was given a gift, but he was given the purpose to lead his people to the promised land, right? And that's when that path per the Red Sea parted for him to lead his people. So that's my definition on a gift and a purpose. Yeah, I may be gifted with having an engineering brain and be able to break things apart, but my purpose is to lead our people to be able to reverse engineer generational curses, reverse engineer, some of the adverse environments that we grew into, that we grew up in.
Wow, man, that's powerful, brother. Is there anything that I didn't ask you that you wanted to share with the people, or any last parting words you would share with those listening?
I say, listen, invest in yourself, bet on yourself. If there are some programs out there, whether it's a college institution or a program like GovCon Blueprint, take advantage of them, because you don't understand where it can lead you. I literally went to the EVB program, and now look where I am 4 years from that, and I'm in this space called government contracting. So it's all about what you envision and what you want out of life. Don't ever tell yourself you don't have this, you don't have that, I don't have the money. Stop telling yourself these things and start telling yourself, no, I am going to get that. I am going to achieve that, because you don't know what God is going to put in your lap. You don't know what financial instruments or resources or whatever is going to fall into your lap for you to take it. So your energy means everything. The positive energy that you have, the better that your life is going to become. So don't be down on yourself, and just change the way you look at things, and the things you look at will change.
Man, that's solid, brother. Thank you for blessing the people today, man. So much wisdom. I hope y'all take notes. Seriously, listen to this episode 5 times. There's so much gems, so much wisdom in here. And definitely go to GovCon. We'll have the exact domain that you'll need to go to get access to the resources and get plugged in. This is a solid brother with proven information. So thank you again for being on the show, brother. We appreciate you.
All right. Thank you.